how do you define personal branding, and why has personal branding become kind of mission critical in 2025?
I think a part of it also goes to just the world we live in from a post-COVID, where it's like authenticity finally became a bigger piece. We accepted the fact that like we're all working from home, so that if right now your dog was to come up, you're like, this is the life I have. Or in my place, I'm in an apartment. Someone knocks on my door and I'm in the middle of a business call. It's like, hey, sorry, I've got to go. Like we kind of just accepted that. So like it allowed us to truly have this vulnerable moment of like, we are human. Who I show up in the office is now also who I am at home, only we're all virtual. So personal branding became a big thing because part of it became letting the guard down. We allowed that to be seen. And so for me, it was like an amazing thing because I'm like, that is who I've always been. And now I get to be even more, but also I work in podcasting. What I love about podcasting, Doug, is you have to be vulnerable. You have to be authentic. So most of us that are in podcasting, I have to have that conversation. So if I'm not authentic, you don't want to listen. No one's going to tune into you if they're not being authentic. And you're like, you're just blowing smoke, or you're not giving me what I really need. No, you actually have to do that. So I think this day and age is incredibly important that we have a personal brand, because people are sniffing out on this doesn't smell right,
Mm-hmm.
and they move on.
Mm-hmm. And if they look just at our socials and all that, they get what we're trying to push out there. Whereas, not to pull it all back to podcasting and maybe YouTube as well, but there are deeper layers. It's hard to fake yourself for 30 minutes in a podcast. At some point, the real you is going to come out.
Or you would hope the person that's asking the question is able to pull that out, and
Yeah.
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 But it's also, we're in the state now where you want to work with people you know, like, and trust. And it comes back to relationships. Like we as a human, we need connection, that we crave that. I had a conversation with someone about AI. It's like, the end of the day, what I do from a human connection standpoint, and what I do from a broker standpoint, like AI, it's not going to be able to do that. I've seen companies that are trying to do that, but like at the end of the day, if you introduce me to Tim, that's going to be so much more than like, how is Tim and I ever going to get connected by an AI chat or whatever the case may be? It's all from a human connection standpoint.
So when I think of personal brands, of course, like, Taylor Swift comes to mind, Oprah. These days I think of Donald Trump. I think he won 2 elections in large part based on a personal brand that he's built. I don't know if Kanye's done it quite as well. His brand is out there. I'm not sure if you call that effective or not at the moment. Depends on who you are. But that's another layer. Like that's those are the PGA golfers of the personal branding world. They're up there. They're millions and millions and billions of dollars. But there are other layers of personal branding. Who comes to mind when I say who's done it well to you?
Can you name, I know you're in Canada, but can you name 3 automaker CEOs?
Automakers. I should know General Motors, shouldn't I? Sorry, top of mind, I can't.
But you know exactly one.
Howard Schultz? Is Howard Schultz one of them?
No, that's Starbucks.
Shoot. Okay. Sorry.
But you know one. Elon Musk and Tesla.
For God's sakes. Absolutely.
Right? So if I said,
I didn't even
hey,
think that he owned a car company. That's how silly that is.
right, but like, just personal branding. People buy, the stock price is going up or it's gone down, depending on where he is now in his landscape. But like, the stock price is literally tied to him being out there. As you said, Donald Trump won presidency because of who he is, right? So like, it's incredibly important. I think about, and I knew I was going to blank on this, but like T-Mobile is a telecom company. Like, they have all their commercials, but the biggest outspoken person was their CEO until he stepped aside. And so the new CEO is nowhere near as out there as he was, but like, he was the disruptive brand. He emulated the brand. So then if we think about it from a personal standpoint, you mentioned like Taylor Swift or Elon Musk, like me and who I am an employee, it's like, people don't trust companies anymore. We don't trust
Yeah.
the news anymore,
Yes.
right? So it goes back to this authenticity of like, who do we trust? Well, I trust you. I know you. I see the brand you're putting out there, and that's why we're having such a rise in influencers. And people are like, great, I'm going to buy products from these people because I feel like I know them because they're authentic, or realize like they're just pushing a product or they're just getting paid for it. Like Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian literally grew her entire brand. And then it would be like, I have 100 million people on Instagram. I don't know what her number is. Like, it's going to cost you $1 million to do a sponsored post. It's like, all right, well, probably whatever she's selling in that regard, she's getting paid handsomely for it.
For sure.
But
You,
like, go for it.
you mentioned the word influencer. So what if like I'm someone who suffers huge pangs of imposter syndrome at key moments, and I'm realizing, thanks to people like you, that I do need to put my personal brand out there. I mean, the artwork for this podcast doesn't have my face on it. And I got to start thinking about stuff like that. And it's because I have imposter syndrome. Could I still enhance my personal brand without necessarily wanting to be an influencer? Or should I overcome my fears of what influencer really means?
Well, I guess that's the question. What is an influencer? Someone who influenced. So, we go back to just the old radio days. Like, they were the original influencers, a radio personality talking about a brand. No one had any other ways to get media, and that's where you got it. And that started and then turned into TV, and now it's, of course, turned to all these other avenues that you can quote unquote be an influencer. But like an influencer is, I'm just being authentically me with an opinion and talking about things that matter to me. And it goes to community and relationships. You're going to vibe with what that person has to say. And so their influence continues to increase because you're like, ooh, more people like what you have to say, the way you say it, the way you act, what you're doing, the information you're sharing. So you're just authentically yourself. It's the bare minimum people will gravitate to you. That just start about it from a friends circle. Just think about it from that. Like, why do people I'm friends with like me? Okay, that alone is you have a sphere of influence with not only your family, but your friends. Now it just expands beyond that from a work standpoint. But the more you talk about who I am, what I believe in, you're going to alienate. Let's go to Joe Rogan, another example of a person. He knows who he is. You ask, who's Joe Rogan's audience? You can tell it's polarized. He doesn't care if someone like me isn't going to listen to Joe Rogan or someone like you is. And he's like, great, I know who my people are. I'm content with knowing my people. Or you're going to have the politician. I've got to shake both hands. I got to make sure I'm careful on what I say. It's like back to Trump. He doesn't care. I'm going to polarize people, but I got to bring them together. But at the end of the day, I can win an election because I was able to get enough people that wanted what I had to say. And then the rest of you, now you're going to have to live with it. And that is, it's a different situation from a country standpoint, but like that's ultimately most people's philosophy.
So let me push you a bit deeper on the authenticity piece here, because I got you, keeping it real. Kendall Brightman from Riverside coined this phrase, so it's not mine. And we were talking about, as a male, this might come across as sexist, but as a male, I can literally throw on a ball cap because I'm having a bad hair life day and go on YouTube and record a video. And I'm not sure most women feel the same way. I would suggest most women feel they need to put themselves together. Whether they do or don't, I think that's how they feel. And she agreed and said, I think for women, authenticity is about being authentically put together. And I love that phrase. In that case, it had to do with how you visually present yourself. But does it apply the same way to how I just plain old present myself? Am I really Doug Downs, or am I this put together version of Doug Downs? Are you really Greg Wasserman, or are you some version, this face of Greg Wasserman? And is that the whole key to being authentic?
It's a good one, Kendall. Part of it, I think, would be, what is it that you want to share, right? Like, I've seen it plenty of times. The put together person on Instagram also has some posts where like, I'm just in my sweatpants day, right? Like this is
Cool.
just me, right? So
Yeah.
like there are those moments where like this is the 90% version of myself that I'm showing you, but you also get to see the 10% of like, you know what? It's a ball cap kind of day, and that's okay. But I think it also comes down to the individual. We've seen in this day and age, because of, I believe, COVID, it's okay that if I want it, like I put on this shirt, partly because it's Valentine's Day and I've got plans later, but like I put on this shirt so that I could be presentable for this podcast.
Your shirt is a red shirt with a V-neck, just
There
for
you
folks
go.
on the
For
audio.
those,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So normally I'm in a shirt and a hoodie. I'm in a t-shirt hoodie. I've got my blue light glasses on, but for the sake of this podcast recording, I'm like different presentable, right?
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that if you want to, most of the content that I'm putting out, you're not going to see a version of that as well as a version of Greg and t-shirt and jeans, right? So like it's a matter of who I want to present, but they're both me. I'm business and I'm relaxed. That is authentically me.
Be both. What are the channels I should use? And does that depend on who my audience ultimately is and my goals?
Uh, yes. Um, I've been on LinkedIn since '06, I think.
LinkedIn's kind of your jam, right? Like
Yeah.
that's your strength zone. It looks like it.
For me, let's see, I'm old enough that I was in college when Facebook started. So 20 years into it, I'm like, yeah, I don't post anything on Facebook. The only thing I do on Facebook is literally happy birthday to people. Like
Yeah.
there's no reason for me to post anything. But I know, especially in the podcast space, a lot of people have their communities because it's free. You've got 2 billion people, that it's an easy thing. But I've also talked to a bunch of companies that have stopped, that have literally let their communities die because it's just not aligned with who their core audience is. And just from an age standpoint, Instagram, I don't post. After my whole thing on Facebook, I'm like, I don't post. There's one picture from 2012 of the Grand Canyon. Everything else is stories. And my philosophy is, I'm like, look, I don't want to look at likes. I don't need engagement, whatever. I'm like, 24 hours. If you either see it or you don't, this is my moment of whatever it is I decided to share, whether it's a quote, whether it's an image, whatever it is, 24 hours, it's in and out. I don't need to be showing up in people's feeds. But I spend my time, because I work in business, on LinkedIn. And that is where I spend the majority of my time. Everything else is, I can follow people's stories. I can DM them. They watch my stories. They DM me. So that's the personal side of things. That is who I am in there. But like LinkedIn, that is sharing, how do I help people? How do I help people find jobs? How do I tell them about podcasts to listen to? But like that is where my core audience is. It's all business related in that regard. So that's where I spend my time.
So what if I'm just a public relations professional? I'm a couple of years out of school. I'm an advisor somewhere. Do I need a personal brand? Do I need to start working on this? I think you're going to tell me yes. So tell me, how do I go about doing that?
Just start. I remember during COVID, there was a community that I got introduced to, and they were all teachers, or I should say, those that worked in education that want to get out of education. So administrators, teachers, whatever. And none of them had a LinkedIn profile. They had a LinkedIn. They created LinkedIn, and this was all over LinkedIn. But like, none of them were thinking about connections. Like, I'm a teacher. Why do I have to have LinkedIn in order to connect with other teachers, to connect with other administrators? Like, LinkedIn is never going to be the medium for that. It goes back to my philosophy. Life is about time and relationships. If you don't have a crystal ball that you think that you're going to be an educator for the rest of your life, and that's what you think of, well, you don't know if that's going to change. You don't know what's going to happen. So might as well start building that muscle, building that brand. So to answer, I'm a few years out of college and looking to do this. go ahead and create a profile. Start filling it in. The way I would say is, at least the way I was taught, is put your jobs in there and craft a story. Why did you choose this company? What did you accomplish there and why did you leave? That is a standard thing. But you see other people put in bullet points. I did this, and this, and it's more like a resume. I went down like, let me tell you a story and what I've done. Neither way can go wrong if you're just starting out, but at least put some information there. People want to work with people they know, like, and trust. And if I go to your profile and there's literally nothing there, who is this ghost?
There was this thing I read a while back about social media, that leaving posting a comment on Twitter or X or whatever is like going to a party, saying something out loud and hoping somebody says, oh yeah, I like that. And I've never lost the feeling of that I might say something and nobody cares. Nobody gives a dang. But what you're telling me is just do it and find your rhythm.
First off, consistency. But second, great. That's a great thing about engagement. I think my post today, no one cared about it. I'm like, all right, either I wrote it wrong, I missed the mark. But at the end of the day, if you go to my profile, and since I consistently post every day, you'll actually get an idea of like, who is Greg? Not only from the profile I get, but also the content I'm putting out there. So if I go to your profile and there's nothing there and there's no engagement, like I say this to people, I'm like, it tells you, LinkedIn tells you, Doug liked something, Doug commented on something, or Doug posted something. And if there's nothing, then Doug is not only just a lurker, like, what is he doing here, right? So who is this Doug person? And I work in revenue. So for me, it's in sales. So if I'm sending you an email, most people are going to go to LinkedIn going like, who's this person that's reaching out to me? And if your profile has nothing in that regards, and they don't have an idea of like what you stand for, what you're trying to sell, whatever there may be, split decision. They're already going like, do I want to take this call? Do I trust this person? Right? So if you are a PR person, you're trying to find a job, LinkedIn's probably your best place. Networking, relationships. If I try to reach out to someone going like, hey, I would love to get a job, and they go to your profile and there's nothing there, why do they want to take a call from you? They probably think you're trying to sell them on something. So like, optics matter in that regards.
Agreed. But I wanted to do an episode on personal branding. It's really becoming something of interest to me and top of mind. You're the one that came to mind. Probably we've met in person at a conference and we sat at a table and attended one session together, and that's about it. That's the most in-person time we've had. But the rest of the time has been really just seeing your posts on LinkedIn, and you've commented on some of mine and all that. So you came top of mind right away. And that's the benefit of exactly what you're drilling down to, that the little brain thinks of Greg Wasserman when it thinks of this particular topic. And that's the game.
As I'll get it from a podcast standpoint. I love podcasting. I think it's the greatest medium because look at what we're doing. We're virtual right now. You've got a video. It's recording us. You can put that up on YouTube.
It's on our YouTube channel, everybody.
There you
Check
go.
Out. Yep.
You can go watch it. You can go listen to it across whatever platform you want it from an audio standpoint.
Yeah.
Or you can repurpose this and turn it into a blog, newsletter, your social post, and all those other components. A person like myself may never listen to your podcast. But if I follow your LinkedIn and I see a post about like, here are the top 4 bullet points that Greg Wasserman said on my podcast about personal branding. Well, person's now engaging with Doug. Thank you. You're also engaging with me because you gave me some love. But ultimately, people are like, all right, I don't have the time to go listen to Doug, but I want to go to his LinkedIn because I want to know who's he talking to? What are they saying? And I'm getting my information. That's the way to treat it. Just like that, treat your social branding in that regards. Like, you're not going to be everything for everyone. Maybe people don't care what you have to say, but if you are at least able to create content so that people have a way to engage and know, like, and trust you, that's going to be key for your future.
Yeah. And the reality is it's really hard to be consistent and not many people can do it. And that's your avenue. That's if you can do good to decent content on a consistent basis, there really aren't a lot of people in your space, anybody's space, that are doing it like that. There's opportunity for you.
Anyone that's listening, 100%. But at the bare minimum, just start commenting on people's posts. Like, have
Yeah.
authentic conversations.
Yeah.
So back to your analogy of like, if I said something and I'm worried that no one's actually going to listen, then great. Be the person that goes talk to the person who already said something and go, you know what? I'm listening. I heard you. And now you've created that connection. And the more connections that you're able to make, whether it's that person who said something you liked, you gravitated towards, or other individual people, then they'll start knowing like, ooh, who's this Doug person that likes what I'm saying, that added 2 cents, that had something to say. Now you're building your personal brand because you're like, you don't have to post if you're nervous of posting, but you probably have the ability to comment on what someone else has to say. And if you're worried, I'm worried about commenting because maybe like they don't want me to comment.
Right. They
Just
actually do.
Yeah. That is a gift. If you think about it, that is actually a gift because now they're getting access to your audience, and the joys of the algorithm, doesn't matter what platform it is. When you post, when you like, when you comment, other people seeing like, oh, Greg commented on Doug's post, and then they'll be sent in everyone's feeds. Like, that's the game of the social media in that regards, but like that's the value of personal branding because now people know you for who you are, what you have to say, whether it's posting or commenting.
Great seeing you today, Greg. Really appreciate your time, man.
Likewise, Doug. Appreciate having me on here and talking about this.